Good morning. All right, I still have oily hair because I'm just rolling out. I just had to get breakfast. And okay, so last night, remember I said that I had eaten like half a cake? Well, I took the cake to bed with me. Like honestly, I was not okay. Anyway, I didn't eat the whole thing, and it wasn't like a big cake. It's like this big of a cake. I mean, it's still too big for one person. But anyway, a child came into my room this morning and they were yapping at me. And then I forgot that I had set the cake on the pillow opposite me in the case. Like, I'm telling you, we've gone feral. So I had just been like eating cake, and then I put the lid back on and I was just like, and set it on the pillow beside me. And they were just like talking midstream. They're like, "Oh my gosh, Mom, is that a cake?" I was like, yes. And they're like, well, I just had a mini panic attack because I was like, oh my gosh, is my mom going to get diabetes? I was like, I'm sorry. You're right. I will not get diabetes because I downloaded an app last night, which is supposed to keep me on track for the next 90 days. So don't worry. And then I told them, don't worry, I'm going to get very healthy and live to be old and disgusting just for you. And they said, oh, gee, thanks. Okay. So get your tea and all that. Oh my gosh, I have so much to do today. I was supposed to go and pack something, but I might do that in the morning because I just don't know if I'm going to be able to get everything done. And I hate, like, I have like a sore here. I'm trying to think of if I ate something that was spicy, or, you know what? It's probably just the cold weather. That's what it is. That's what I forget what it's called, but it's like when you get cold weather and then you start to like get sores around your mouth because it's too cold. Anyway, it's been like minus 23 and things like that where I am, so it's cold. I don't know what I was just saying on. Oh yeah, ADHD. Case in point. So sometimes when you have ADHD and you split up your day, then once you come back from whatever took you away from your task, like you're just ruined. Like you can't even focus on the task at hand if you know that you have to leave. It could be 8 hours later, but you're frozen because you're waiting. You're just waiting and you can't focus on anything else. So I'm just going to tell myself that I'm not going out today so that I don't have to keep myself frozen in that state. So hopefully I don't get called into work. Ugh. Alrighty. Now, yesterday's chapter bored me to tears. I mean, you could probably tell. I was just flying through it. I was just like, it was the most boring chapter to me so far. It got a little interesting. I liked at the end when she was talking about how like she didn't really have any idea about the civil rights movement. Like I found that more interesting when she was talking like about her own experience, and then like I found that part interesting. But the other stuff I was like, okay. Even the bit about the marijuana plants didn't make me laugh so much. Maybe I was just in a mood. Obviously I was, because I was eating cakes. All right. All right. I'm a little sniffly as always. Pause and go get yourself a cup of something. What am I going to do for cleaning? How am I going to go about this? Sometimes the best thing is just to put on an ABBA album and fly. All right. Chapter 6 is entitled Queen of the Land. Settling back into the rhythms and routines of 1040 took some effort after the summer camp atmosphere of the Cape, and doubling as governess on top of serving as Madam's personal assistant became more demanding once school and all of the kids' activities in the city got underway. Madam kept offering me the permanent job as Maud's successor, and I kept turning it down. If you were assigned to the kids full-time, you couldn't leave in the evening if Madam was going out, and your schedule was too unpredictable to make plans of your own. She's a smart girl. Let me tell you, because when I was 19, I don't think I would have, it wouldn't have been in me to be like, no, this isn't my family. Like, no, I'm not part of the family. And, you know, I probably just would have been pressured into the role. Sticking with my original job gave me a better chance of at least occasionally getting the evenings or monthly weekends off that I had been promised when I was hired. The problem was, there was no such thing as a time clock to punch. I was on duty until Madam decided I wasn't. Kath, could you come here for a minute? The request always came after dinner, just when I thought my long day was done, and it might be safe to slip out the door to enjoy the rest of my evening. Maybe see if Bridie Sullivan or my sister Breege were free too. Instead, I would end up shrugging off my coat to go find Madam in whichever room she was no doubt about to redecorate. Hanging and rehanging pictures was her favorite thing to do when the house was quiet and still. Her art collection was huge and ever-changing, and she loved to rearrange it. If it wasn't the paintings, it was clothes she wanted to move around from one closet to another, or shoes that needed reorganizing in the middle of the night. She was often restless in those hours between the children's bedtime and her own, and it wasn't until I became a wife myself that I understood how lonely 9 o'clock can be. There's a world of difference between talking about life over a glass of wine with your spouse and thinking about life over a glass alone. It couldn't have been so urgent at that hour for Madam to have me hold some heavy painting of a huntsman on horseback and move it higher, no, lower, while she made a pencil mark on the wall and hammered in the nail. But I felt I had no choice but to indulge her. I had even missed out on celebrating my 21st birthday with friends when she decided with no advance notice that she was going to her country home in Peapack to spend a few days horseback riding, and I had to come along to watch the children. Once we were there, she caught wind of my birthday from one of the other girls on staff I'd been planning to celebrate with. I was touched when Madam went out of her way to make me feel special, surprising me with a strawberry and whipped cream cake and some lovely gifts, 2 turtleneck sweaters, a suede purse from Caroline, and a silver cigarette holder from John. But I also resented living my life almost entirely on her terms. I was a full-fledged adult now, and it was only natural to want to start spreading my wings. What I really needed to do was to take a page from Muggsy's book and learn how to stand up for myself when Madam took advantage. The first time I saw Muggsy push back was one afternoon when the crusty old Secret Service man had returned, weighed down like a pack mule with fancy shopping bags, after Madam went on a spree. She hadn't been home but a few minutes before she asked me to summon Muggsy back upstairs. She had one of her heavy horse pictures in hand, and I knew what was coming next. Muggsy reappeared with blood in his eye. "How did you like your lunch today, Madam?" he asked evenly. "I didn't have lunch," she breezily replied. "And neither did I." 1 second. "And neither did I. We were out all day and you didn't give me a break to get something to eat," Muggsy complained. "I'm going to get my lunch first, and you'll have to wait about your picture." "You probably had your lunch, Muggsy, but go ahead. Go and have your lunch," she snapped back, the sarcasm turning her breathy voice into pure acid. Muggsy stormed out of the room. I stood there shocked. That's the last we'll be seeing of him, I thought, certain that Mrs. Tuckerman would be waiting down in the lobby with his walking papers the second Muggsy stepped out of the elevator. Instead, he was back the next day. "Good morning, Muggsy," Madam greeted him sweetly. Muggsy was all smiles, too. Everything was forgotten, and they just carried on until their next fight, when the pattern would repeat itself. They both seemed to enjoy the bickering. The closest I'd ever come to defiance was unintentional, and had more to do with manners than moxie. I'd put my hair up in pink rollers and tied a scarf over them while doing some chores back in the servants' wing one morning, thinking it didn't matter, since no one but the staff or kids would see me. But Madam did, and I was swiftly brought to heel. "Kath, I don't need to be seeing you in those rollers ever again," she reprimanded me. I apologized and went to take them out. I had rolled her thick jet hair in curlers many a time and set her up with magazines and refreshments while she baked under her hooded dryer in the guest room while she was between appointments with her celebrity hairdresser, Mr. Kenneth. If her roots were showing, she touched them up herself with a bottle of tint Mr. Kenneth mixed up for her to keep at home. It stung to be put back in my place, but I accepted she had every right to do so. I just couldn't muster the nerve or heart to do the same when the tables were turned and she was reeling me back in after I'd already said goodnight and changed out of my uniform. Exasperated as I was by her last-minute tasks and the way it was never just for a minute, I sensed it wasn't my talent for hammering in a picture hook she wanted in those empty hours so much as my simple presence. I was helping keep vigil over what was never talked about. What I preferred to be doing when the day was done was exactly what every other single young New Yorker was doing, going out to unwind with friends. I was madly in love with the city, and it hadn't taken long for me and Breed to discover its lively immigrant scene. All the doormen and domestics and other young working-class Irish came out to play in social clubs that sprang up like Brigadoon for a few merry hours every night in space rented from some dive bar or union hall. Our favorite was the Jager House, which was as Irish as a Wiener Schnitzel, but the Germans retreated when it was our turn to cut loose, and it felt like I was back at Friday night dances in Inniskeen, doing the twist until my knees ached. Call it the twist, the chicken, the swim, or whatever you like. It was all basically one big Irish mating dance. The quartering ritual was much more brutal, and the competition more fierce than it had been on Inniskeen's dance floor, though, especially when the handsome, smooth-talking Italians would show up. My dad always says that Italians and Irish go very well together. The Irish girls lapped up their Casanova charm and swagger. The Irish lads didn't appreciate the competition, though, and after exchanging some choice insults about national soccer leagues, fists would fly while Motown played in the background. The Irish always won, and the Italians always came back another night. The cloakroom at the Jager House was where you really figured out the lay of the land. You had to squeeze past all the coats to get to the ladies' room, and there was no slipping by Marianne, the nosy coat check girl, without getting interrogated. I'm sorry, I'm stuttering today. Interrogated. "Oh, Kathleen, what happened?" she'd ask with a syrupy fake concern. "No one asked you to dance?" Marianne knew the bathroom was where the wallflowers and rejects hid, applying lipstick until another song started, so they could go back out without the humiliation of being on public display while standing around waiting to be picked. The loo was also where romances were analyzed like soap operas, dramatic mid-waltz breakups were plotted, and other interesting secrets occasionally spilled. The only girls who never hid out in the bathroom were the ones who looked like Jean Shrimpton or danced like Ginger Rogers. I didn't check either of those boxes. I was terrific with hair and makeup, though, and once I got the hang of copying Madame's style on a budget, long-ribbed turtlenecks belted over a hip-hugger miniskirt with boots was the easiest to pull off. I may not have made the most beautiful list, but I could always pull off cute. There was no denying I was a terrible dancer, though. At 5'7", I always ended up having to be the man when practicing with my shorter sister or friends. Problem was, I had gotten too good at it. "I'm the leader, you're not," I was constantly being scolded by the frustrated guys who asked me to dance. I wasn't schooled in the art of playing the helpless female either. The first time a gentleman tried to hold my coat for me back in the cloakroom, I grabbed it back, startled by some stranger touching me, my adrenaline surging at the muscle memory of old Putty groping me when I was 12. "Give me my coat," I cried in alarm. "I'm only helping you so you can get your arm in the sleeve." The poor guy protested. And needless to say, I spent my fair share of time in that ladies' room pretending my lipstick needed fixing. Thanks to an intervention by Madame, though, my self-confidence was starting to build. Hold on, I want to look at her picture as a grown woman. Isn't that interesting? And I find this to be so true, is that somehow, as people age, they look so beautiful that you think that they were gorgeous in their youth. And then sometimes you look back and you're like, not so. But she looks terribly beautiful as an older woman. But she's prettier now than she was as a young woman. Isn't that interesting? I love when that happens. All right. It's like, some of us don't peak so early. Thank God. All right. I'm still waiting to peak. I mean, I'm still waiting to get into my pretty stage. Hold on. I've got a runny nose today. I swear, as soon as I start reading it just starts pouring. It's probably getting out here with all the bunny fur. This is where Timothy runs around most of the time. All right. After a brisk, steady parade of ill-tempered and uninspired cooks, Madame had finally landed a gem. Anne-Marie was a vivacious young German who was just a year older than I was. We hit it off right away. I could tell Madame liked her, too, sometimes even sitting to have a cup of coffee and chat while we were all in the kitchen. As much as I liked Anne-Marie, though, I also felt a pang of envy. She always looked so fresh and pretty, with the kind of figure that could carry off the bold colors, short hemlines, and geometric prints that were all the rage. She showed me the Upper East Side thrift shop she had discovered where all the rich women donated their clothes. Anne-Marie even knew how to dress in satin and fur for a pittance. Fashion was fun and daring in the mid-60s, but I felt too frumpy and depressed to join the revolution. I had ballooned to 185 pounds in America, and I wasn't even 23 years old. It had been easy to forget how big I'd gotten when the other females on Madame's staff were twice my age and just as heavy, but Anne-Marie was a daily reminder of how I should be, and what I longed to be. I was disgusted with myself, and my spiraling self-esteem put me in a funk that Madame quickly noticed. "Kath, is something wrong?" she asked me one morning as I was laying out whatever stylish outfit she had requested from her closet that day. Without warning, I found myself fighting tears, and I blurted out the truth. "I hate the way I look. I wish I could have a figure like yours, Madame," I said. "You always look so beautiful, whatever you put on. I wish I could lose some weight." "Oh, Kath," Madame sympathized. "I can help you with that if you want. Come with me." Uh-oh. Oh, dear. All right, listen up, ladies, because here's our new diet plan. Come with me. Hopeful and curious, I followed her as she led me into the kitchen. "Anne-Marie," she said, "Kathy wants to lose some weight, and you and I are going to help her. Can you fix some special meals for her?" Anne-Marie readily agreed, and the two of them quickly mapped out a new eating regimen for me. A boiled egg and tea in the morning. Okay. Cottage cheese with an apple or other fresh fruit at lunch. Oh, my Lord. And poached chicken breast or a piece of fish with a salad or steamed vegetables for dinner. Plain yogurt when I wanted a snack. All right, well, I won't be... If I followed that, they would be like, you can't give your plasma. Sorry. Not enough protein. Anne-Marie also kept a large jug filled with water in the fridge and insisted I drink 8 large glasses a day. The diet was almost exactly what Madame ate herself at home when she wasn't entertaining. No wonder she stayed so slim, despite the rich food served at the fancy restaurants and lavish parties scattered across her official calendar. I can't even imagine how many vitamins you'd have to be taking, because that is, well, it's the 60s. The diet began that day at lunchtime, and with Anne-Marie's encouragement, I stuck to it, minus a few yodels pilfered from the box in the pantry meant for John and Caroline. I even figured out how to make plain yogurt not taste like wet chalk by mixing a spoonful of instant coffee powder. The pounds steadily melted away, and after 6 months, I was 40 pounds lighter and actually eager to try on clothes and show off my reclaimed figure. Browsing happily through the racks of discounted designer clothes at Lohmann's, I found myself a form-fitting maroon knit dress, which even garnered praise from Madame about how smart I looked. I never wanted to let go of that dress after that. I wore it until it was threadbare and long out of style. My work uniforms were another story, though. A few sizes too big now, they hung on me like potato sacks, and I asked if it might be all right to order new ones in lavender, my favorite color, instead of white. "Of course," Madame said, promptly buying me 2, one lavender and another in a pale blush rose. She, of all people, understood what self-esteem could do for a woman. Keeping herself fit, active, and impeccably groomed had to have helped carry her through the challenges life threw her way. It stood to reason. Without realizing it, I began to take on those habits myself, much the way a younger sister mirrors the older one she envies and admires. I mean, that's not untrue. I say, as I sit here with oil in my hair, wrapped in my emotional support scarf. All right, so I'm just trying to... Okay, a boiled egg and tea in the morning. That's crazy. Cottage cheese with an apple. And then fish or chicken. I mean, Financially, I could afford it. I'm like, this might be the answer to all my problems. That is crazy. You'd have to be supplementing. Isn't this awful? I'm sitting here looking at it from a financial standpoint. I'm like, oh, yes. Maybe I'll do this. But if I did this, I would add in like 2 protein shakes a day, because that's just not enough protein, not even close to enough protein. Maybe I'll do that. If I had like an egg and a tea and then a protein shake and then a protein shake oh yeah, I think that would be fine, because as long as you're having, and the protein shakes are fairly high in calories too. Oh, maybe I will do this for a while just to, slim down a bit. Speaking of 185 pounds, one moment. Okay. At the Irish clubs, my newfound confidence and more stylish wardrobe didn't go unnoticed among the girls gossiping in the ladies' room. Who do you think you are now, Jacqueline Kennedy? One of them, good-naturedly. Who do you think you are now, Jacqueline Kennedy? One of the girls ribbed me good-naturedly. You gotta change your tone. Not really, but I'm trying, I answered honestly. Besides taking some cues from Madame's closet, I had also adopted some of her mannerisms, like the way she would absently hold her sunglasses in one hand and twirl them by the stem, or wear them on the top of her head to push back the hair from her face. Actually, it was more than a gesture I'd borrowed. I'd also picked up a couple pairs of big round sunglasses themselves when she threw them out. The girls at the Irish club weren't the only ones to notice the new me. I landed myself a boyfriend, too. Pat had a good job delivering oil, and he was a real gentleman, taking me out and treating me to dinners and movies. He was easygoing and fit in well with my sister and friends. Everyone thought he was good marriage material. There was just one big drawback. Pat told me that he could never live in Ireland again. His allergies just couldn't take the damp. I felt bad for him, but this news was too big a disappointment for me to brush aside. My interest in him swiftly began to fizzle. The whole reason I didn't date American men, or any of the flirty Italians, was because I had every intention of returning home someday to raise a family of my own. An Irish husband seemed like the best way to guarantee that future. If I fell for an American who didn't want to uproot himself, I would never get back. Much as I loved America, I considered it a holding pattern until my real life took flight. I was proud to be able to send money home each month, as well as care packages of new Levi's for my brothers and a nice dress for Mam. But my younger siblings were old enough to hold down jobs of their own now too, and the situation wasn't as bleak as it had been when Breege and I were sent abroad. I didn't have to stay forever. Returning on my own as a single girl was out of the question, however. The ones who did that got branded as failures. Despite our geographical divide, Pat and I continued to coast along, and my resolve faltered. There was no romantic proposal or anything, but at some point it was just understood that we were headed toward marriage. Then our general discussions turned into a specific decision, and we set a date a few months down the road. I even reserved the church. Uh-oh. The plans came to a screaming halt when Pat announced that he didn't believe in engagement rings. He considered them a waste of money. Do you think it's wrong that it matters so much to me? I asked Bridie. The ring was supposed to be a symbol, and a sparkling diamond, even a small one, showed the world that I was treasured. Pat wasn't at all a cheapskate, which somehow made his position about the ring all the more hurtful. I felt like he had done his calculating and concluded I wasn't worth that level of investment, yet here I was giving up Ireland for him. Bridie understood what I meant, but her reservations about me marrying Pat had nothing to do with my neglected ring finger. Why should I want to tie myself down at 22, she wanted to know. The more I thought about it, the more I saw how right Bridie was. I called Pat up and told him the wedding was off. He had known I was miffed about the ring, but had never expected it to blow up this way. Neither had I, frankly. The decision was right, but I was deeply embarrassed by how I had let my indignation take control of delivering the news to Pat, who called me back after, baffled and angry. I agreed to meet him for coffee to explain. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. Hurting him felt awful. I changed my mind. I'm too young. I have more single life to live. Pat was still furious, but there was nothing to be done. I had expected to be devastated. A broken engagement should have warranted at least a brief Wonder Bread relapse. Oh, honestly, I could go with a mayonnaise sandwich right now. Guys, I think I'm in my eating phase. But the crying jags, mayo sandwiches, and country music sing-alongs with my pillow never came. Maybe I hadn't been in love after all. It was scary to think how close I'd come to making a lifelong commitment to someone out of mere fondness, and the fear maybe that I would end up alone. I had hung enough pictures in the middle of the night to know that all the riches in the world couldn't ease that ache. It was back to the dance floor for me. I think that was very right, because here's the thing, is that a man might not believe in engagement rings, but if he knows that it means something to her, then he should relent. Because he's not the one who has to wear it, or go without it. Wedding or no, I still yearned to nest. I was desperate to set down stakes on that real life I imagined building for myself. Bridie was itchy to escape Kennedyland once in a while, too, devoted as she was to Jean Kennedy Smith's 2 little boys, William and Stephen. We decided to look for an apartment to share. We soon found a 1-bedroom flat on East 81st Street, just a couple of blocks from the river, making the mayor one of our new neighbors. The beautiful park surrounding Gracie Mansion became a favorite spot for me to get some sun and daydream when I had a free afternoon. Our apartment was a tiny 5th-floor walk-up with a water closet. There was no shower, just a bathtub in the kitchen. But we didn't mind brushing our teeth in the kitchen sink. We didn't plan to live there full-time anyway. All we wanted was a cozy place to relax and have friends over when we could. I would still sleep at 10:40 during my work week for convenience sake, and Bridie, as governess, had to spend the night at Mrs. Smith's as long as she was on duty. We split our $75 monthly rent down the middle, and when Bridie began hanging out so much that we threatened to charge her, she ponied up for the utilities instead. Bridie also came in handy with the used sewing machine she had bought, whipping out kitchen curtains and a tablecloth from cheap fabric we got at Woolworth's. I dug into my savings to buy a double bed for the bedroom, and Bridie provided a couch for the living area. We slapped a piece of plywood over the bathtub, and it became our table. Friends would come over and play Parcheesi or 25, Ireland's national card game. Like bridge, 25 involves lots of rules and lots of math. We would toast pieces of pita bread and butter them to snack on over endless mugs of tea. Oh, this is so cute. I didn't breathe a word to Madam about getting my own place, and Bridie kept the apartment a secret from Mrs. Smith, too. The whole point of having it was so that they couldn't find us. Fall and winter with Madam were always filled with lots of little trips. We might have Thanksgiving with Madam's mother at the Auchincloss estate in Newport, Rhode Island, where I tasted my first roasted chestnut and thought I'd died and gone to heaven, or head off to Colorado for a family reunion ski vacation while the kids were on Christmas break. Madam took me to Bloomingdale's and bought me a thick Irish sweater, a puffy black parka, plus matching pants, gloves, scarves, and boots. Aspen was like no place I could ever have imagined, as close to an exact opposite of Ireland as could be, with its fields of deep white snow, towering Rocky Mountains, and jet-set image. Setting out with our Secret Service detail that first morning in my new winter outfit, I quickly discovered that I was no ski bunny. I was too scared to even get on the ski lift, much less come rocketing down an icy mountain on 2 skinny pieces of wood. Fortunately, John was still a beginner at the time, so I was able to hang out on the sidelines, watching him take lessons on lower ground. The poor Secret Service man guarding him had nothing but a government-issued jacket and no gloves. Since my puffy parka had nice warm pockets, I loaned the agent my new leather gloves so his trigger finger wouldn't get frostbite in the event he needed it. I never did get those gloves back. I guess that was my contribution to national security. I was much happier back at our chalet, sipping hot cocoa with marshmallows with the kids, or sitting around the big table with everyone for one of the family's trivia contests. There'd be 20 or more of them. They were all very big on games, and they wouldn't allow you to sit out. Any sore losers or crybabies were told to go to their rooms. The trivia contest petrified me. I had no idea which state started with the letter C, or the names of the world's biggest mountain or longest bridge. You'd get a poker chip for every answer you got right. Caroline and Courtney always had the biggest stacks, though Bobby was the undisputed king. I'd sit next to Courtney and elbow her as my turn approached. "You'll be fine, Kat," she promised, always slipping me the right answer in the nick of time. She and Caroline even knew the answers to more of the questions about Ireland than I did. When the parents went out for the evening, the nightly all-cousin pillow fight began. It was like indoor touch football with the same amount of running, tackling, shouting, and laughing, plus feathers. So many feathers it looked like we were inside one of those little souvenir snow globes, and someone had given us a ferocious shake. I tried to pull John out of the fray. Feathers triggered his asthma, and I was worried he'd have a coughing fit, but he seemed fine, so I let him have his fun. Beautiful as Aspen was, when it came to family trips, New Jersey was much more my speed. Madam leased a house in Peapack, the heart of hunt country. She loved to spend weekends riding to the hounds with her fellow equestrians or just cantering through the leafy back roads. She boarded her horse at the stables of her good friends Peggy and Murray McDonald. The McDonalds had a house full of children for John and Caroline to play with, too. Peapack was about 50 miles from Manhattan, but it felt 5 times as far when Muggsy was driving. Going to the Cape was even worse. The other Secret Service guys had warned me to use the restroom first because Muggsy never stopped until he was out of gas. But poor Shannon couldn't hold it that long, and I'd always end up begging Muggsy to stop so the dog didn't pee in the back seat. The road trips were made even more insufferable by Muggy's smelly cigars and his mistaken belief that we would prefer to hear him singing old Sinatra standards over listening to the radio. If he wasn't in the mood to torture Frank's greatest hits, Muggsy would opt for torturing John instead with an old song called "Arrah, Go On, I'm Gonna Go Back to Oregon." Pat McCarty, hale and hearty, living in Oregon, he'd begin. "No, Muggsy, stop," John would plead from the back seat, knowing that Muggsy not only intended to recite the whole silly song about a cheap Irishman, but also wouldn't stop repeating it until John correctly recited it himself. "Heard a lot of talk about the great New York." So he sold his farm when all was calm and landed on old Broadway. "No, please." The ditty ended with Pat taking a girl into a swell cafe. Muggsy always drew out the swell to annoy John even more. And getting sticker shock. The waiter brought the card and said, "What will you have?" to Pat. Then Pat took a look at the prices and said, I'll have me hat." "Come on, John, now you say it," Muggsy would urge. If John messed up a line, Muggsy would make him start all over again or recite it again himself. Back and forth they'd go until John clapped his hands over his ears. "Muggsy, if you say it again, I'm going to jump out of the car," he warned. Caroline would ignore the whole thing, letting whatever book she was reading carry her away to some more interesting place. The Peapack house was too small to bring a cook. I had to share a room with John as it was, so Madam and I did all the shopping and made the meals. In those close quarters without a house full of staff, our relationship felt cozier and more familiar. She shed the trappings of her usual pampered life at 1040 with ease, preferring to keep it simple in Peapack. We cooked together, just us and the kids, sticking to things like spaghetti with ragu from McKeon or hot dogs or fish sticks. Madam had a habit of wandering off and forgetting she had something on the stove, though, so there was a good chance a pot would boil over or the noodles would be gummy if one of the kids or I didn't catch it in time. She could boil an egg all right, but it was probably going to end up hard-boiled. We were more inclined to laugh and eat our mistakes than start all over. Oddly enough, she could make a perfect pot of Irish tea, boiling water poured over double bags and steeped just right so it was nice and strong. She taught me to save the used bags and cool them in the freezer so she could put them over her eyes after her morning shower to get rid of puffiness. I was no Julia Child myself, but I let her play head chef in Peapack. I was reluctant to show any skills in the kitchen at all beyond my radar vision for leftovers in the fridge. "Never let them see you know how to cook, or that'll just be one more thing they'll be expecting you to do," my sister had wisely advised me when we both started working as live-ins. If you didn't set boundaries and guard them fiercely, you would just keep giving away more and more of yourself, till one day there wasn't a you left at all. In the spring of 1967, Madam came to me with news of a big trip in the works. "Kath, you're going to love where we're going," she teased, her eyes dancing. "Where, Madam?" I hoped it was some tropical place that was warm. Hawaii was supposed to be beautiful, coconuts dropping right off the trees. "Ireland! We're going to bring you back where you came from." No coconuts and suntan lotion there, but she was right. I was excited. We'd be vacationing with the McDonald family for 6 whole weeks, with regular days off and the alternate weekends I was supposed to have. I could squeeze in some good visits with my family. I couldn't wait to dash off a letter to Ma'am to let her know. "Very, very excited to be coming home," I wrote, "and guess who with?" I'd had my first trip back to Inniskeen just the previous summer, but it had been bittersweet. Oh. Dad had died right as I started working for Madam. His heart had given out, and he had been buried 2 weeks before Uncle Pat even broke the news to me. There's nothing you could do anyway, and you were starting your new job, he rationalized. He was right. I wouldn't have been able to afford airfare back to Ireland, and taking leave right as I was being hired could have given Madam second thoughts about my reliability. I wept alone in my room after hearing the news, never telling Madam of my loss for fear it would just scrape at her own wound. She had a keen sense for sorrow, though, and she had picked up on mine right away, hovering about and asking if I was happy working for her, assuming that Pravi's high-handedness was at the root of my melancholy. I was thrilled that another trip to Ireland was on the near horizon, and a grand tour at that. This one would be a happier homecoming, to be sure. Ireland would do both our hearts good. After stepping off onto the tarmac to cheering crowds at Shannon Airport, we all headed to the Waterford coast aboard a chartered luxury bus with big picture windows that the children excitedly waved from as we rolled through villages whose narrow lanes were lined with well-wishers. What was so familiar to me, cows crossing a cobbled road, spring lambs gambling in velvet green fields, was new and thrilling to John and Caroline. The Kennedy clan had steeped the kids in their Irish heritage from the time they were babes, and they had grown up hearing the music, folktales, and brogues of the Irish help around them. Caroline wore a green ribbon in her hair every St. Patrick's Day. At 7, John probably had a better grasp of Irish geography than American, loving to moderate fake debates among Madam's staff about our heritage. Which is better, Monaghan or Sligo? He would goad May and me as he sat at the kitchen table with his cookies and milk after school. Monaghan's farmland is more fertile, I began. Sligo was the home of William Butler Yeats, May boasted. Point to Kathy, John shouted. Potatoes trumped poets in this game, I was glad to learn. But Sligo is so much prettier, May objected. That was true enough, but I had my pride, and I wasn't about to agree. Go on, May. There's still working fields with donkeys in Sligo, I scoffed. What I lacked in ammunition I made up for with typically barbed Irish humor. 2 points, Kathy, John shouted again, slapping his hand on the table, this time for emphasis. John's appreciation for Monaghan's agricultural talents had been reinforced by my great success in showing him how to grow an avocado tree by putting the pit in a glass of water and letting it sprout roots. John was excited when I told him it was time to plant it. We found an empty ceramic pot abandoned in the back hallway after its plant had died, and we commandeered it for our avocado. Between you and me, we'll take good care of it, said John. We checked it every day. First a shoot came up, then a leaf, then another. John loved watering it, and before long we had a long, healthy tree. We kept it by the back elevator. One day, I spotted Charlie hauling it through the front hallway. Where are you going with that? I demanded. Madam said to put it on the front patio out in the living room, he said. No, Charlie, that's not her plant, that's my plant. It belongs to me and John, I explained. Charlie put the avocado tree back. Guests were coming for lunch that day, and Madam wanted to know why Charlie hadn't moved the big plant yet. Charlie wasted no time in pointing the finger at me. I was bringing it, and she said it was hers, he said. Why is her plant in my pot? Madam countered. Bring it out here. Madam, I jumped in. That plant's been here a year. I lost the avocado tug of war, and without John and me babying it every day, the little tree died of neglect in its new location. Nevertheless, I was still eager for John and Caroline, born and raised city kids, to see what rural life was really like, and share what I knew about planting and harvesting when we all visited my homeland. On the way out the door for our Ireland trip, John had tossed poor old May a small bone. Don't worry, May. I'll go see for myself if Monaghan is better, and I'll let you know. Monaghan and Sligo were both north of the route we took across the country, then down the western coast, passing through an Ireland I was seeing myself for the first time, before we finally pulled up to the secluded estate where we would be spending the summer. Irish step dancers in traditional costume were waiting to greet us alongside servants standing at attention in black and white uniforms outside a white Georgian mansion. Horses and ponies grazed in the front pasture. I'm going to sneeze. Inside, a parquet entry hall unfurled for what seemed like a city block. There were 15 bedrooms in all, with Madam's in the front facing the Irish Sea. Point to Waterford, I thought. Madam had a busy calendar with jaunts here and there, including a state dinner at Dublin Castle, where she wowed the fashion world yet again with her dark hair and eyes offering dramatic contrast to her vivid green evening gown. She stayed overnight at the Presidential Palace and went to the Irish Sweeps Derby the next day to watch the thoroughbreds race. I stayed behind at Woodstown House with the children and the McDonalds, enjoying our lazy days picnicking in the fields or climbing down the rocky cliffs to play on the beach. Tell us again about the fairies and leprechauns, Caroline would beg me as the three of us ate our sandwiches on a blanket we'd spread over the soft grass. Enniskeen was a day's journey to the north, but watching John and Caroline enjoying exactly what I had loved to do at their age in the same land carried me on a sweet nostalgic breeze back to my own childhood. If you sit on a hill at night and are very quiet, sometimes you can hear the crackling of sticks and see their little fires, I told the children. I spotted them once or twice from a distance, doing a jig and smoking their pipes. Sometimes they just sit round a circle playing cards or other games, but if you get too close, they vanish. Tell us more, they would demand. Can we catch one? They had big plans to hunt for pots of gold on this trip and were desperate for any clue. You have to look for a lone blackthorn bush in the middle of a field, I instructed them. That's where the fairy forts are. All the farmers know it's bad luck to cut the bush down. Sometimes, when they're plowing their fields around it, they find little clay pipes, 1 or 2 or 3 inches long, with the heads the size of a marble. You can cut a single branch from the lone bush for a shillelagh or walking stick. Shillelagh? Is that how it's pronounced? Or walking stick, but that's all. The fairies live under the bush or beneath the stones nearby. Okay. Sorry, just my nose is so itchy this morning. I had spotted a lone blackthorn in a field from the bus window on the way to Woodstown and pointed it out to John and Caroline. They spotted a few of their own over the course of our summer as we hiked the hills and fields of the Woodstown estate. Off they would run to search for cold fairy campfires or tiny decks of old maid. Leprechauns were trickier. I had informed them. They loved playing pranks and stealing potatoes or small tools from farmers' sheds, probably to dig holes for burying their black pots of gold coins. I'm going to catch one, John vowed. Nobody ever has, I replied. He spent the day concocting various plans to outsmart the leprechauns. He vowed to sneak up on them with a net, or ambush them with an empty shoebox or such. No way would he be returning to America empty-handed. I told the children less fanciful tales, too, sharing my favorite memories from a childhood that couldn't be more different from their own. I recounted how Easter Sunday had always been such a glorious holiday because my brothers and sisters and I got to take the jar of pennies and halfpennies Aunt Bridge saved for us and go to the shops on the road to buy candy. We always gave up candy for Lent and looked forward to this binge when our sugar fast was over. We'd pour the coins out on the counter and buy as many little chocolate eggs and pink marshmallow ducks as we could. We'd gather a dozen eggs from Mam's hens and bring a saucepan from home, along with tea, matches, and a bit of milk. We'd make ourselves a little stove from sticks and stones, fill our pan with river water, and boil the eggs for lunch. We used the cleaner water from the spring for our milk tea. Our friends would come along with their own Easter candy. One boy who was better off than the rest of us, Brian was his name, always had good chocolate, and he would trade us some Cadbury for boiled eggs. We were gone all day, and life seemed absolutely perfect. All right, we're going to stop there because my allergies are really kicking up a fuss this morning. But thank you so much for being with me, and wish me luck that I get everything done that I need to get done. Lord. All right, I will see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful Sunday, and I will be seeing you soon. Bye.